Welcome, Hudson Valley, to this week's edition of In Touch, the award-winning public affairs and issues program that runs across Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley radio stations. This week on In Touch, I speak with health expert Dr. Redcross about recent online health trends. It can be tough to sift through all the influencers posing as TikTok docs. Dr. Redcross and I break down the credibility of recent health trends so you know what to trust going into the new year. We invite you to join us and listen to a previously recorded conversation between Dr. Ken Redcross and myself here on In Touch. Thank you for all the kind words shared in regard to In Touch officially being awarded the 2023 New York State Broadcasters Association Award for Outstanding Public Affairs Program or Series as part of the 57th Annual Excellence in Broadcasting Awards. This recognition would not be possible without the incredible team here at Townsquare, all of our phenomenal guests that we learn and grow with every single week, and of course you, the listener. Whether you've been listening for a while or you just found us, thank you for taking part in the conversation and staying in touch with what's going on in the Hudson Valley. We here at In Touch are all about, being in touch with what's going on in the Hudson Valley. What better way to stay in touch with what's going on than by downloading the Townsquare Media mobile app for this radio station? Not only can you listen to this station live at any time using the app, but you can also listen to In Touch on demand. Besides In Touch, you can read daily articles about news, events, entertainment, and more that's going on in your community. And when the weather gets bad, you can use the app to check on weather reports and see which roads, schools, and organizations are closed. Your Townsquare Media app is the best place for concert tickets and events as well. We're constantly giving away tickets to the hottest shows in the area. Again, you'll have access to all of this if you just download the Townsquare Media mobile app for this radio station. In Touch is nothing without the support of the hundreds of listeners that we get on a weekly basis. Thank you so much for listening and taking part in the conversation. If you listen to In Touch through a podcast service such as Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please consider leaving a positive review. With more 5-star reviews on these platforms, the algorithms will work hard to promote our show and bring In Touch to new people. That and also sharing In Touch with your friends and family is so important. Just sharing our links and listening live each Sunday goes such a long way. Thank you for all you do to stay in touch with what's going on in the Hudson Valley. Hello, Hudson Valley. You're listening to another episode of In Touch, Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley's award-winning public affairs and issues program. And we got a great episode for you guys today. You know, a doctor's biggest competition used to be Google or WebMD, but now it might as well be TikTok MD. The internet and social media can be so convenient and useful for many things, such as restaurant reviews, vacation inspiration, quick comedy, stuff like that. But when it comes to health tips, it's kind of all up in the air. And looking to TikTok influencers for your health needs, maybe not necessarily the best path to go down. And that's why we have today's guest. With us, we have Dr. Ken Redcross to tell us about the goods and the bads of what you're probably seeing on social media right now and what's being told is good, what's being told is bad, and what really is and what really isn't. I think we got a really great episode lined up for you guys today, so let's welcome him. Dr. Redcross, thank you so much for being here on In Touch.
Oh, thank you for having me on, Connor. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays. And I think this is a very good time of year to be talking about health tips in this regard because obviously with the holiday season, everybody's going to be indulging with holiday parties. Yeah. But once that's over, you got January, you got the resolutions, and everybody's going to be trying any fad diet or any fad tip they can find. So I think it's a really good idea to break down a couple of things and based on what you see, what's the best route for people to take. But before we get into that, I always like to ask our guests, could you give us a little bit of an overview on your background so everybody knows where we're all coming from here today?
So look, I am, as Connor said, Dr. Ken Redcross. I am a concierge physician, everyone. That pretty much is a doctor who can kind of be there whenever you need him or her, right? And so I'm an internist by trade, but once again, I am Western trained, but I kind of saw the light and realized that there were more natural or ways closer to the earth to actually heal. And so my practice is pretty unique, and I actually still make house calls. Fancy that, Connor.
Oh, my God.
It comes to your house. I know, I do that. I have my little black bag. So I say all that to say, but quite honestly, my passion also is the patient-doctor bond. And so that's what I like to focus on, just like we will today.
Oh, that's terrific. Yeah, you don't hear about house calls all that often anymore. So that's awesome that you take advantage of that. That's awesome. I'm really happy to talk about that and the bonds. Trust. Trust is a big thing when it comes to the health field. I feel like people will go to one doctor, and if they don't trust them or they don't get the right vibe from them, they'll move on. And then same when it comes to getting their health news. And as I've already mentioned, the internet, it's great for a lot of things. Self-diagnosing, not necessarily one of them.
That's so good for that. That's so good for that. You're right there, Connor.
So, how are social media health challenges helping and harming the public these days in 2023, now leading
Connor,
into the
this
new
is such
year?
an important topic, everyone. You know, when we look at what social media has done, we start to realize that we are kind of getting some of our medical news from social media. And so we're here today to kind of say, look, you know, it all comes back to the patient-doctor relationship and bond when you see these things. So when you see these things on social media, I want everyone to kind of think like, maybe this is not for me. Should I talk to my doctor about these things? So, Connor, if you saw over the past few months or so, we were talking about this Ozempic challenge, and that was something that was really big off of social media. In fact, back to that TikTok doc that we talked about before, and that was a particular challenge that brought out something good in this case, right? It brought out a supplement that a lot of us didn't really know about called berberine, which is great because we know that it's really good to help for blood sugar support and cholesterol as well. But it isn't necessarily for everyone, meaning Ozempic. So when you're thinking of these things that you're seeing, I want to make sure that you don't look at kind of social media as law, especially when it comes to your medical health.
No, absolutely. Now, when it comes to berberine, I've seen it. We talked about this a moment ago, where I've seen it. Mm-hmm. I've seen people mispronounce it, berberine or whatever. Sure. So obviously those people aren't necessarily knowing exactly what they're talking about here. So could you tell us what exactly berberine is supposed to be used for, but then also how it's being shown online?
Oh, that's a great question. So look, everyone. So berberine, and I was so proud, Connor, because when you mentioned it, you said it perfectly. Yeah. It's called berberine. It's a natural herbal, everyone. And so the key here with berberine is for those who have blood sugar challenges, whether it's type 2 diabetes or what we call insulin resistance, have obesity, which also increases your risk for issues with blood sugar as well. The good thing is we know in the studies that when we looked at berberine, it was helpful not only for blood sugar, but also to help support cholesterol as well. But the big question everyone should ask with any supplement, not only just berberine, to be honest, Connor, is where are you getting your supplements from? For instance, I know that in particular, berberine, there's a line called Doctor's Preferred. The reason why I talk to patients about that one is because they're not only reputable and trustworthy, but there is a seal on there that's important, everyone, that has a GMP seal. That's Good Manufacturing Practices. So when you look at any supplements, whether it's the one by Doctor's Preferred or any other companies, the point is look for seals. They typically are third-party organizations that make sure that not only the particular thing in the supplement is there, but that the quality is also there as well.
No, absolutely. And now, what was that acronym that you used before? You said GMP. Is that correct?
Yes, everyone. GMP, Good Manufacturing Practices. There should be a nice seal right on the side of the bottle or whichever supplement that you may be looking into. And once again, that lets you know that it's already been vetted, and that you can kind of trust that, because that's the other thing you have to be careful of, right? When berberine was big a few months ago and everyone was talking about it, they would say, well, Dr. Redcross, I heard about it. I know it can be helpful for me or my mother. Where do I get it? There's a million of them on Amazon. And so that's why I mentioned Doctor's Preferred and some other areas. Myers carries different lines of some of the supplements as well. Myers Grocery Store that actually has the ability to get some of these supplements that have the GMP seal. So look for these things, everyone, when you're out there. It's such an important part when you're putting these things into your body. You want to make sure that there's someone that's not related necessarily to the supplement company in and of itself, but to let you know that there's value there and that there's also safety there.
That's really good to point out. Now, obviously, a seal is a very good thing to be able to see. That's a great notification. But what are some warning signs that people should look for when they are grabbing supplements? Let's say it may not have the seal, but let's say it has a couple of other red flags. Are there any specific red flags you might be able to tell us about today?
Oh gosh, Connor, that's a great question. So let me say it this way, Connor. So everyone, I don't want to say necessarily red flags in that sense. What I do want you to make sure of is before you put something in, there are a few things we need to think about. Number one, are there any drug-to-drug interactions, right, Connor? So if you take some of these things, you want to make sure, gosh, I'm taking something for my blood pressure. Is this going to be okay? The next thing I want you to think about, are there really any issues as far as with my liver or kidneys? In other words, are there any other things that's going on with my body on how this particular supplement is processed that there will be an issue with this? And last but not least, I always talk to patients about bringing the supplement into the doctor's office and going, honestly, Connor, line by line. Look, what's in this? What do you think, doc? Is this okay for me? Is this good for me? What do you think? In other words, you create that beautiful dialogue and make sure when you're in that office, because that's the important thing about that patient-doctor relationship. And it's even more important when you're talking about taking supplementations or listening to something on the internet from time to time.
Absolutely. So I feel like just good rule of thumb, regardless, if you are interested in trying something, you think it might help you, reach out and have a discussion with your doctor. That just seems to be the good rule of thumb there.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head there. And I know sometimes it's challenging because we're busy here and there. But once again, if you have the right doctor and the right relationship, you can leave a message, or he or she should be able to reach out to you. And above all, make you feel comfortable about what's going on and about your questions.
Absolutely. Again, you're listening to In Touch, Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley's award-winning public affairs and issues program. We are speaking with Dr. Ken Redcross today, and we are going over some of the latest TikTok trends when it comes to the health field. We specifically have been talking about berberine and how it's been used online, and just rule of thumb in general, whatever kind of supplement that you were looking into, you should discuss it with your doctor, and you should also look out for the GMP seal, along with other green flags along those lines. So I'm glad that we were talking about that. And again, as I mentioned, we're looking into the new year. New year comes New Year's resolutions. Everybody's going to be hopping onto whatever fad they could possibly get onto. And based on some of the things that you've seen recently, what are some of those, what are like maybe one or two other trends that you have seen that are going around TikTok or Instagram when it comes to the health field? And are they good or are they bad? What are some things that people should look out for in those ways?
No, that's a great question because, I'll go back a couple of months ago as well when you think of a couple of the kind of challenges that were really good ones, but still had some things for us to watch out for.
Okay.
One of them, everyone, was called the Hot Girl Walk Challenge. This was a challenge when there was a young lady who was on quarantine. You may remember this one. Yep. She was on quarantine, and she was talking about the importance of going out and taking the nice brisk walk. But while you were doing so, you were thinking of three things: how grateful you were, thinking about some good life goals, and above all, remembering how hot you are. And I like that particular one because there's a lot of self-love in that as well. Now, the only thing I just caution everyone about, walking is a good thing. Exercise is a huge thing. But when I think about some of my older patients, or when I think about my patients with heart disease or lung disease, that's a discussion that, once again, needs to be had with your doctor to make sure that this particular Hot Girl Walk Challenge in this example is good for you, and how it can be good for you, and just how we need to be a little careful with you about that. That's all. So when you look at these things, that's an example where it's not so bad, and there are some good qualities to it. Another good one, well, one to be careful of, I should say, is called the Water Chugging Challenge.
Oh, yes.
Now, this one, Connor, you think, well, you remember, you're thinking to yourself, well, what's the big deal, doctor? Just chugging water. Well, our body doesn't like us to chug water, especially too much at one time. It brings down our sodium, which can be dangerous. But water is good for us, right? We're 60% water, and I always talk about kind of an 8x8 rule, trying to get 8 glasses, 8 ounces a day. Yep. So water is good here. But when you talk to your doctor, don't forget you're going to have some patients you don't want to necessarily have too much fluid. My patients who have heart disease, for instance. And so it leads back to the same thing that you said in this segment, Connor, is that having a discussion with your doctor is so important to make sure that these trends, especially during this holiday season, you're going to see even more that start to come out, and we have to make sure we're really well connected to stay out of harm's way.
No, absolutely. And I'm glad that you brought up the water challenge too, because I was somebody who drank a lot of water and I would guzzle water. I keep like a 32 ounce by me, and sometimes I'll be like, oh, I forgot to drink water. And then what I would do, I would just down the whole thing. And then I was working with a nutritionalist, and it was like, why are you doing that? That's terrible for you. You just remind yourself
Right.
to drink throughout the day. And so I'm glad that I was doing that.
No,
And
you're right.
yeah, people can literally drown themselves for doing something like that. So it's very important.
And you know, this was one of these challenges where it was way, way too much. So you're right,
Yep.
Connor. This is such an important topic to have about something as simple as water, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's like water. Everybody needs their water. You see those videos like come up on your feed. It's like, this is your reminder to drink water today. But then you can take it to an extreme. And I'm glad that you brought that up. I think that's a very good one. And I'm sure by the time that this episode airs, there's going to be like a million more things that are going to be going on.
Yeah.
And that's the scary thing. It's a good thing, but it's a scary thing. There are things that are coming out of the woodwork every day, any second, whether it is founded or not. And we mentioned in the first half talking with your doctor about it, but that can be kind of stressful to do. There are enough people that have anxiety already just simply making the call for the doctor's office. So what are some of the best approaches that we can have to speaking with our doctors? How can we actually start that conversation? We talk about having it, but how can we actually go about that in a way that makes everybody feel comfortable and seen and understood?
Well, look, one of the important things that I really harp on a lot, everyone, is that to realize that you're number one, right, when it comes to the patient-doctor relationship. And when you talk about those things that are so important to make sure that we all stay healthy and whole, it's making sure that you have a relationship with someone in the medical field where there's trust, respect, empathy, and communication. All four of those things are important, especially when you're coming into the office. And for instance, we're talking about some of these challenges and so forth today. You need to, number one, not be afraid to be able to approach your doctor. Number two, you need to also make sure that you don't feel put off, that you don't feel like, oh my gosh, this is silly. They're not going to listen to me. They're going to tell me not to take this supplement, for one example, and so forth. And that all gets back to making sure that those four kind of cornerstones are there with the doctor when you get there. But when you go to your doctor, it's going to be different now, Connor, because we're talking today. You are all going to go prepared. You're all going to go with a strategy now when you're going to your doctor's visit to make sure that you can have some of these talks that used to be a little more challenging, that hopefully now will be a little bit easier.
Absolutely. No, I think going in with the kind of the right tools on your tool belt and just to be curious about it and open about it, that's definitely the way to be. And you're right. In the doctor-patient relationship, the patient's number one. So I'm glad that you're really emphasizing that. And I think a few people sometimes need to hear that because they'll go into the doctor's office and they'll feel little, not belittled, but like they feel little, and it's like, I don't know, I don't know how to do anything. So it's like, I'm just going to sit here and take whatever's said. It's like, it's okay to ask questions. It's not necessarily challenging. You're just looking out for yourself in this and trying to become more aware. So I think that's very important.
Absolutely. In fact, this is an active thing, everyone. I always talk about that, with the patient-doctor relationship. I just have a different job to do during this communication with you, the patient. I'm not necessarily better. I'm not, I don't like for it to look like that. I can't do my job without you. I just happen to have different skill sets, but you also have something. You took time out of your day. You came in and you paid your copay. You know that your time there is valuable as well. And so you should feel just as important as the doctor when you're actually there trying to stay, as I like to say, healthy and whole.
Absolutely. I think that's really important to be able to acknowledge the stress and anxiety that can come along with that and to be able to overcome it. To be able to talk about these things is very important for the health field in general, but our individual needs. And actually managing stress and the anxiety about all that actually brings up a challenge I forgot to mention before, wanted to discuss about box breathing has become very big of a trend. And it's one of those things where it's supposed to help manage that stress and anxiety and mindfulness. And I'm sure a lot of people are turning to that during this time of year. Holidays can be wonderful, but boy, can they be stressful all at the same time.
Right.
So,
right.
There are some good things that are out there on box breathing. There's some bad things that are out there on box breathing. Could you go into what box breathing is for the uninitiated? And could you also tell us some of the goods and the bads to look into on those trends?
No, absolutely. It's so funny. We're talking about this box breathing challenge during the holiday season. Everyone's thinking about presents and putting them in boxes and so forth. This is very, very different. To your point, Connor, look, guys, this is all about mindfulness.
Yes.
So mindfulness is so important, especially during this time of year, but not only that, when you're going through certain challenges. So this box breathing challenge, everyone, is pretty much a formalized way of breathing. When you're taking in this deep breath, I want everyone to do so with going in for 8 seconds with an inhale, holding in and exhaling for 8 more seconds. And you're doing this for a couple of minutes. And as you're doing this, you're going to find that the mindfulness comes, and you're going to find that a lot of the anxiety dissipates. These things are important. Whether you're looking back in different Chinese medicine or what have you, you'll see the importance of breathing. But the thing I caution everyone on, if you find yourself really doing this box breathing exercise like all day, every day, then there may be an idea or a thought, I should say, that there's something else a little more going on.
Yes.
Are you dealing with seasonal depression, especially during this season?
Yep.
Are you dealing with anxiety that maybe needs to be treated? So once again, the box breathing challenge and the special way to really take in your breath and hold it and really be mindful about each and every breath is a good thing. But once again, if it's taking over, you realize that it's really impacting you over and over, then that's another phone call to the doc, everyone, so we can make sure that we can tease through everything and make sure you're okay.
I'm really glad that you brought that up, that it could be the start or the start of recognizing a much bigger problem that could be happening.
Right.
One thing myself, I went to college for singing, so we learned a bunch of different breathing exercises, and it's something that I carry into my day-to-day life because it does help out.
Wow.
But, also at the same time, especially throughout the pandemic, that was also something I really tried to focus on as well. And when you kind of sit there for a few minutes trying to do these exercises that are supposed to be helping you, it's like, it's not working. And eventually, eventually I can say this, and I've said this before on this program before, it did lead me to seek actual counseling, first with grief counseling and then with a official therapist, and it's those steps, it's those initial steps to just in mindfulness in general. Mindfulness is being aware of who you are, how you're feeling, and taking that all into account. Sure, box breathing and other breathing exercises did not cure me of any anxiety or depression, but it certainly helped to get me on the right direction during the pandemic, during a time period that I was lost. And I think that could be something that can be helpful for a lot of people during the holiday season. As you said, with seasonal depression, we're getting into the colder season. That's going to hit a lot of people. So I think it's like that first step that's going to be big for a lot of people. And I'm glad that you brought that up.
And I'm glad that you also talked about the challenges and what you did. That's the big thing, right? It's about being strong and being able to have these discussions and being open now. And that's so important to continuing that health journey. So, I applaud you as well in being able to understand this box breathing and the importance of this. So this is huge. So I'm glad you even shared that with me.
Oh, absolutely. Acknowledging it is one of the best things that you can do for yourself in order to grow and to heal. Yeah. So absolutely. Again, you're listening to In Touch, Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley's award-winning public affairs and issues program. We've been speaking with Dr. Ken Redcross, going through a lot of the different TikTok, Instagram, social media trends that are going on in the health field. And we're talking about the pros and cons of it all. There's a lot of good stuff that you can learn, but there's also some stuff that you got to be wary about. And number one, consult somebody in the field when you have questions about it. Yeah. Just because something might look good on social media doesn't mean it's the end-all, be-all. It might be able to start the discussion, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be the solution. Dr. Redcross, thank you so much for being here on In Touch. I really appreciate everything that you've been saying today. Where can people find you? Where can they follow you? Where can they hit you up to get more information on what you do and in regards to these online trends.
Absolutely. So, Connor, thank you for having me on, everyone. And please, happy holidays. Feel free to reach out. I am at drkenredcross.com. And any of my social media handles, everyone, is at Dr. Ken Redcross.
Fantastic. Easy enough. And of course, all links and information will be in the description of this episode. Dr. Redcross, again, thank you so much for being here. Do you have any last little nuggets that you care to leave to our In Touch listening audience?
So, yeah, Connor, I will say one other thing, everyone. Look, as we take this beautiful health journey, I mean, the social media things, they're not going to change. And so I talk so much about the importance of that relationship with your doctor because it is that important. So hopefully as you see these things and so forth, you'll be able to remember this time together to kind of say, I remember that when I talked with Dr. Redcross, he talked about this and the importance of my health journey with me and my doctor.
Absolutely. I think that's really important and a great thing to leave off on. I appreciate that. And I think that's exactly what some people are going to be needing to hear going into the new year. So again, Dr. Redcross, thank you so much for your time and expertise.
Thank you, Connor. I appreciate that. Be well, everyone.
This has been this week's edition of In Touch, the award-winning public affairs and issues program that runs across Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley radio stations. We want to give a big thank you to Dr. Ken Redcross. For more information on Dr. Redcross, visit his link tree at linktr.ee/dr.kenredcross. Whether you've been listening for a while or you just joined us, thank you. You can find In Touch episodes new and old on your favorite streaming services like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. That and listen on demand with your Townsquare radio station mobile app. Of course, you can still find all articles and audio under the In Touch tab on this radio station's app and website. And don't forget, we're also on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at InTouch_HV. I've been your host, Connor Walsh. Until next time, stay curious, keep an open mind, and as always, I'm glad we get to spend some time